5:30 for 5:30. So first off on our agenda is roll call and attendance. So Eric.
Here.
Joey.
Here.
Tanya.
Here.
Edgar.
Here.
Dane.
Here.
Shelby was excused. She's sick today, hence why I'm chairing this meeting. Alex.
Here.
Martin.
Yep.
Kennedy. Lacey.
Here.
Me. President. Demetria.
Here.
Kirti.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Vinay.
Here.
Patrick. He's Brandon.
Here.
Okay, so next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. So if you all would like to take a look at the agenda, and Eric moves to approve the agenda. Edgar seconds. All right. All those in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And next would be approval of the minutes from February 14th or 13th, 2019. So if you all would like to take a look at those. I'll entertain a motion for Brandon. Is there a second? Edgar? All right. All those in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Okay, so next on our agenda is public comment. So first call for public comment. Is there any public comment? Oh, I did skip reports. So moving back because I'm not used to it. Reports, seeing as I am just temporary chair, I don't have any.
I don't have anything.
The only thing that I'd like to point out is that we have $38,684 left in the budget.
I guess what I will put on there, not as a report, but at this point, we don't have any additional supplemental requests right now. So if what we have next week is just voting on this and then the 2 program reviews, I may put on there just as a heads up that we'll start looking at some of the annual reports that were submitted, so we have time set aside. Again, either next week or the week after, just so you all are aware. You can go look ahead of time if you would like to go look on the website, save us some time, but we'll have that on an upcoming agenda.
There's a update that I forgot to mention 5 seconds ago. I did send out the student wages form that we kind of reviewed last week, and so not next week, but the following week I will be, the plan is to present the minimum wage as a whole. So I believe we have earmarked the 6th, if I remember correctly, to talk about that.
Alrighty, so no more reports. So now is the first call for public comment. Any public comment at this time? Eric?
Is the 6th our last meeting for the quarter?
For the quarter, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, because the 13th is canceled because of finals, and the next is.
Okay.
And any other public comment at this time? I do have one thing. The little leaflets on your chairs there. I don't know if there's enough for everyone. I might have underestimated, but Edgar and I had publicity put these together. So that's just the posters that are going out for the S&A fair that's on March 6th. It's also our last day, our last meeting. So. All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll go into old business. Subsection A, supplemental funding request voting. First up is funding request 1936, the NASP conference for the School Psychology Club in the amount of $3,700. And with that, table's open for discussion.
I think this could be an incredible opportunity for the school psych club. I think there's 2 presentations happening from students at our school, some graduates and undergraduates, and then just knowing for their field this is some incredible an incredible experience that their meetings are probably succeed once we're outside of academia.
Any other discussion? Eric,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the full amount of $3,700 for 1936 NASP Conference School Psychology.
so Eric makes a motion, Dane, you second it. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go into voting, so all those in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Alright, with that, the motion passes. So next on the agenda is supplemental request 1937, the Shape America Conference for PESH Association, in the amount of $7,735. With that, the table is open for discussion. Brandon?
I really enjoyed the presentation. They all displayed themselves well. But besides that, I think just being kind of like for them being future physical education majors, networking is key. And one of like the biggest opportunities for them at this conference is to network and like learn about maybe future training curriculum that they can apply and shape the future like generations, as well as just learn an incredible amount and meet business professionals.
Eric?
And they're going to bring these, what they learned, back to the school and mentor future PE majors. And I think that's important, and that's kind of the goal of going to conferences, is to bring experiences back to future students and students that are here that aren't maybe majors yet. So I find that important.
Brandon?
Yeah, I also like the structure of their club, how they have kind of like their top cohort, and then they kind of like mentor the cohort below them from going to this like that conference or Shape America conference, and then kind of like gives them like prep for them to go to it, and then they'll kind of like teach the cohort below them. It's kind of like they'll always keep building and developing as a club as well at this conference.
Alex?
So do we know if they've made up that 2020 club senate?
You mean if they received it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have not, we're on the books to present back after this.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Brandon?
I moved to allot them $7,735.
Brandon makes a motion to approve the full amount, Eric seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go into voting, so all those in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Alright, with that, the motion passes. Next up is supplemental request 1938, the ACDA Student Dance Association Conference, in the amount of $2,308.75. With that, the table is open for discussion. Alex?
I like seeing how much effort they put into fundraising. It seems like there's a lot of buy-in, so it's good to see.
Also think if they could fund it and go to this event, that they'll bring back a lot to the school, especially since they're performing 2 dances, and they'll kind of get critique, and they'll kind of learn from that experience on that after. pilots needs to become like better dancer, kind of like better choreographers, and then from that we kind of like bring back that what they learned from there and kind of like make that student dance association even greater.
I'd like to make a motion to approve $2,309 for the Student Dance Association.
Eric makes a motion for $2,309. Edgar seconds. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go into voting. And all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? And with that, the motion passes. Alrighty, so that takes care of voting. Next, we're going to go into new business, supplemental funding request presentations. The first one up is supplemental request 1939, the International Women in Aviation Conference.
It might be because I'm not logged in anymore.
Oh.
It's an inbox that's flashing.
I'll just go ahead and move this.
So you'll have 10 minutes to present.
So I am Grace Oakfield. I am the secretary of the Women in Aviation chapter here in Ellensburg.
And I'm Ellie Williams, and I'm the vice president.
So Women in Aviation is a nonprofit organization that encourages and assists women and students that are considering aviation-related careers. And it provides educational year-round resources like mentors, scholarships, and it hosts events. The main event is Girls in Aviation Day, and it introduces girls ages 8 through 17 into aviation. And it promotes public understanding of women's contributions and accomplishments in the aviation field.
So in our class, which is the 2022 graduating class, there's about 120 students, and only around 15 of those are girls. The dropout rate for our major is about 52%, so we really want to try and keep those retention rates up. Out of all about 600,000 pilots in the U.S., only 7% are women, and there's only 42% active U.S. Pilots are going to retire in the next 10 years, so Boeing is saying that they're going to need over 100,000 pilots in the next 20 years.
So the Women in Aviation Conference, 5 of us are going. It's in Long Beach, California, March 13th or March 14th through 16th, and we're going to be networking, getting inspiration, and it's an educational resource for us, I guess. And we're going to be learning chapter leadership skills there, and they're going to have professional aviation speakers and possible people that we can get jobs from later on. And we're going to share our educational resources with the CWU Women in Aviation Chapter here.
In terms of funds, we've requested $1,500 from the Club Senate and the same amount from the Student Academic Senate. And we are requesting $2,731 from services and activities. The registration fee for the actual convention is $295 each. In total, our round trip tickets are going to be $656. For safety reasons, we're taking a shuttle from the airport, which is going to be $81 each. The hotel and Airbnb for 4 nights will be $2,515. Transportation will be $80, and food, we wanted to allot $30 for each day. So that brings the total to $5,731.
And we had originally requested $3,044 from here, but that was before we had gotten all of our airfare tickets, and we did, and they were lower than we had thought, so that's why it is now $2,734. Any questions?
So we'll go into 10 minutes of questions time. Demetria?
At the conference, is it set up as different seminars that you're going to, or is it more workshops?
There are multiple seminars going on at once that we can choose from.
Brandon?
How do you choose your 5 students?
They are all board members, except for one. She's the Senate of our, and the senator of our. She just filed that paperwork and turned it in today, so that's why we don't have a senator here today. But all of them are board members.
Thank you.
So, is there like a club?
It's a chapter, Women in Aviation chapter, and anyone in the aviation department can join.
Thank you.
So, was there an opportunity for other people to go as well, or was it just you all just?
It's just aviation department. Because the Women in Aviation is, I believe, exclusively to women, but I think in the chapters you might be able to be men also.
Brandon?
How do you plan on sharing what you learn at this conference with the other members that don't get to go?
We were planning on taking like videos and taking notes at like the leadership skills for chapter and like we're presenting it to them and the aviation department or the head of the aviation department.
Aaron?
In this chapter, there are other members, correct?
What do you mean? Like
Members of the.
yeah.
So my question is why then did you determine just officers to go to this and didn't give opportunity to other members to possibly go and learn these skills?
If they do want to go, they would have to pay out of pocket. We don't want a bunch of people going there, and we don't want to have to watch a bunch of people. And I think it would be better if just the 5 of us go, because we're the board members, and we don't want just anybody to be like, oh yeah, let's go on this trip. It's a new organization, so trying to build it.
And you are also a recognized club on campus also?
I believe so. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure. I think that's more of a question for the president.
Can you go back to the second slide? I think it was the second slide. Oh wait, no, one more. That one. So with that, knowing that are all 15 women in there, is that how many you have in your chapter right now then?
No.
Okay.
Not all 15 women are in our chapter. There are a few men outside of the board members.
And then the second question. When you mentioned the dropout rate, was that to the program in general? Do you know if that's higher or lower for the women in the program?
I'm I'm not sure if that's higher or lower for the women. I think that's just the freshman class of aviation.
Got it.
Any other questions?
And we're requesting so much money without funding before because it's a new organization and we didn't learn about this until like right after we built the organization. And then we have to spend like an extra like $5,000 per quarter because of the fees for the flight lab, which is $5,000 itself. And so like my tuition itself is $42,000.
Brandon?
Oh, she's answered.
Demetria?
Okay, so for the club, have there been any fundraising ideas or things that you're gonna do either before going or afterwards to help raise for next year maybe?
We have been pondering some fundraisers for after, and each year we have to host at least one event for girls to stay a chapter for women in aviation. We have to prove that we did an event. So we will be doing funding and an event afterwards.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you all. We'll be voting on this next week. Alrighty. Next up is supplemental request 1940, the National ACS Conference. And you all have 10 minutes to present and then 10 minutes for questions.
Is this quicker one for this?
Okay. My name is Rachel Atsis. And my name is Keisha Hawley, and we will be attending the National American Chemical Society conference in Orlando, Florida. So a little bit about this conference. It is one of the most prestigious and largest conferences in the world regarding chemistry. To give you guys an idea, there are over 1,300 accepted abstracts. Of that, 8,000 of those will be speeches, and about 5,000 of those will be posters, which we will be doing. So I'm going to hand it off to Keisha to go over a couple of the logistics.
Alright, so just so you guys can kind of get an idea of what we're actually going to be doing and experiencing at this conference, we kind of gave you a day-by-day play. We will be arriving in Orlando, Florida very, very early on March 31st. It'll just be like our first day. We'll do our check-in, registration, get our badges and everything. And then we'll actually be going to the Chemistry Demo Exchange. This is an event that we're really excited about because I don't know if you guys have ever experienced one, but Chemistry Club here at the school loves to do demos. They do things at Booth Central, they do them in the science building. One of our professors loves to make, I think they're helium balloons and light them off because they make this huge bang, but like you're not gonna die. And then they also do things at like the high school, the middle school, and the elementary schools around here. So they do a lot of community outreach in that term. And so it's going to be a chance for us to see what are other colleges, chemistry clubs, ACS chapters doing around the country, and how can we bring some of those ideas back here to Central in order to better engage our community, and not only like the Ellensburg community, but also people here on campus. So it's like, you guys, chemistry isn't scary, it's actually kind of fun. There will also be the opening session and then the graduate school fair, which will also be nice because Rachel and I are starting to look at where we want to go after Central, and it'll be a really good opportunity to see what's out there. Monday we'll be starting the Expo and Career Fair, which is actually an opportunity where Rachel and I will be doing on-the-spot interviews to actually potentially try and get jobs. And if not get jobs, at least just get our name out there and practice. We're both looking at going to medical school and possibly even starting interviews for that this summer. So that's going to be really good practice for us. We're actually both bringing resumes and business cards that we can hand out while we were there, just to spread the name about who we are and the research that we've been doing. And then Monday, if you guys continue on Monday, we'll also be attending presentations. There's going to be hundreds of presentations. On Monday alone, there's 140 consecutive seminars and presentations taking place at once, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how big this conference is. There will also be a caffeinate and communicate in the afternoon, which is a more relaxed, 2 hours where you can just go, have some coffee, snacks, and just talk with people in a less formal setting. So you can just kind of get to know people's research better and just get to know them better. And then that night will also be the Science interdivisional poster session, which is really cool because those are like posters that have been like specially selected from like each technical division to be presented all at once. Tuesday is pretty much the exact same thing with the Expo and Career Fair, presentations, Caffeinate and Communicate, but that day is also the National General ACS meeting, which we're excited to go to because it's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually like sit down and see how they're going through the new constitution for the ACS. They'll be voting on bylaws, and that's, you know, something that kind of governs what we're doing in terms, especially like our degrees are ACS certified. So that's going to be a really amazing opportunity for us. And then Wednesday, we'll continue to follow the same thing. We'll also be presenting our own research that day, which is amazing because like Rach said, there's only about 5,000 posters accepted, and we were one of them. And there's not a lot of people doing the research that we're doing, and so this will be a really good opportunity to show what we're doing here. In terms of learning outcomes, we're going to be going to workshops, seminars, and networking events while we're there. In terms of workshops, we'll be going to the Getting Graduate School, the ins and outs of getting in, which will just really help us with preparing, you know, like our applications, resumes, and whatnot, moving so on and so forth here from Central. We'll also be going to the Improving Scientific Communication Skills workshop. Communication in science is essential because we got to be able to tell people what we're doing. And scientists aren't necessarily always the best at communicating, so this will be an option for us to help practice that. As well as the International Year of the Periodic Table of Elements, we actually have no idea what this is going to be about because there's no information about it, but it sounds really cool and we're really excited. For seminars, we're going to be going to Networking 101, and then also the Frontiers in Leadership. Rachel and I are both planning on eventually being doctors, and leadership and networking is a huge part. Some of the jobs I've already had in different physicians' offices in because of networking, and so if I can learn how to do that better, like I could eventually end up down at Baylor working for them like I want to. And we'll also be going to networking-specific events like the Chemistry Demo Exchange, the Caffeinate Communicate, as well as the Undergraduate Social, which will be a really unique experience for us to be able to talk with other undergrads going through the same processes that we're going through right now. In terms of bringing it back to Central, we're going to be presenting the high-quality research capabilities of Central Washington on a national level. So we're organoboron chemists, which is a subcategory of medicinal chemistry, which is a subcategory of organic chemistry, which is a subcategory of chemistry as a whole. So as you guys can see, there's really not a lot of people out there doing what we're doing. So if we can show someone who's on the East Coast or maybe even down in California what we're doing, and they might not even know that Central exists up here, then we can just be like, hey, look at this research that we're doing up here at our Pacific Northwest Regional School. Like, is this something that you're interested in? Like, do you want to come do a graduate program here? Which will also increase the visibility of Central because, again, like, what we're doing is rare and it's kind of hard, but we're making it work, and so we need to be able to show people that, hey, this is successful so far. We'll also learn how to better engage chemistry students through workshop training, whether it's saying, you know, this is how we can communicate better within our department or with other schools. You know, the chemistry demo exchange, the graduate school stuff, you know, we're going to bring that back. We're going to have meetings with the chemistry club to show them what we did while we were there and what we learned. And then again, we're going to be expanding the network pool for all chemistry research groups at Central.
So I get to talk about funding a little bit. Just something I want to point out really quickly. When we submitted our packet, we were requesting $850, but we did not know that one of our members does not have a car, so she needs to take the shuttle to and from the airport, which is $80 each way. So we added $160 to that, so we're at $1,000 for S&A. So the first thing that we did when we were applying to get into the National ACS Conference was we applied for the Office of Undergraduate Research Grant, and we obtained $1,200 from them. What we plan to do with that money is use it for the conference registration, as well as use for some of our meals, and then pay for some of our grant transportation. Unfortunately, no one attending the conference is 25 years old, so we can't rent a car, so we'll be taking Uber and Lyft and other taxi services like that. We've been watching the rates of it. It fluctuates quite a bit, so we've given ourselves a little bit of flexible room with that. We also attended the Club Senate meeting as well as Student Academic Senate. We got $1,200 from each of them, which is great. We plan to use their money for our flights for each of the members, which will cover everything. As well, one of our hotel rooms, we have 6 people, so we need 2 hotel rooms, so we have one of them covered. And then our ACS membership. As you can see, we're requesting money for our ACS membership. The point of this is because registration for the conference goes down significantly if you're an ACS member. If you're not an ACS member, it's $225 a person, whereas if you are a member, it is brought down to $125, so we're all becoming members to bring down that cost. So right now, as a group in total, we would be paying $987 out of pocket, which we are committed to paying because we are really, really, really excited about this opportunity to present our research. But we are on a college budget, so it's a little tight for us. So if we were to receive the money from S&A, we would be able to pay for a second hotel room and not cram 6 people in one room. And as well as pay for our ground transportation and get our member to and from the airport. So as of right now, we have each paid $450 for our flights. 2 of our members are getting money from other sources. So it's just 4 of us that we were covering for the flights, as well as one of our hotel rooms. Keisha was kind enough to front the money for our hotel room. And we would love to answer any questions that you guys might have at this time.
Is there any questions? Dane?
What kind of research are you guys doing?
So we do, so we're pretty much like organic chemists, but we specify a boron. So pretty much our, like the full title of our research project, at least the one that Rachel and I specifically work on, is the exploratory synthesis towards 1,3-azoborines as potential HIV or protease inhibitors. So essentially we're trying to make compounds that will one day actually function to be a drug that would hopefully treat HIV.
Right.
So are you just like, putting up your poster and then just having people look at it, or are you gonna be asking questions?
So yeah, really similar to Source. So a lot of people in the industry will be walking around asking us questions, and then we're hopefully going to be getting into the sci mixture, so into the more, the smaller tight-knit group, so then we can just compare and talk to our research about even more people.
And we'll be talking our research up in like the days beforehand and saying, hey, like we're presenting, at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, here's our card, come see us.
Is the amount listed for the hotel, is that based on the one hotel right now? It's the 11, which you have, there's 1,200 on here, but is that for just the one?
That's for both.
Oh, okay, so that is
Yeah,
both.
yeah. We put a little extra wiggle room in there just because the prices have been kind of fluctuating.
Especially getting close to the conference.
Especially getting close to the conference. But
Is there any other questions? Brandon?
The other 4 going, are they presenting as well? Are they just attending?
we will all be presenting
Oh,
at this. So what we're going to do, because it's like a 2-hour long presentation, so there will always be 3 people at the poster. And so it'll be like us 2 and then 1 other presenting for an hour, and then we'll actually get to go and look at the other posters that are at our same time, and then the other 3 will be presenting as well so that everyone gets experience.
Yeah, everyone attending the conference is an author of our research, so it's not just random people coming to hang out. We're all authors of the project, so we know what we're doing.
We've all been working on it for 2 years.
Dimitri?
Has Central or any of you attended this conference before?
I think students from Central have gone there before, but we personally have never been, so we're really excited to go.
Any further questions? I did have one. In what ways, I know you'll be seeing research and stuff, but I'm still more members of ACS here on campus. How will you be bringing that research and ideas and things like that back to your entire chapter and inspiring them to pursue different research opportunities?
So we're definitely going to be, one of the biggest things again is going to be like the networking. One of the things that Rachel and I like to do even at sources when we were walking around, we would actually take pictures of like people's poster titles and their names so that we could contact them later if we needed like more information. So the hope is to actually like get like a wide variety of like different research and figure out kind of like what people are interested in, and then find those like research topics while we're there, and then be able to like find the contact information like for the people that are doing that research and bring it back for them.
And the thing that's great about the science community is when you're involved with it, like we know pretty much all of our colleagues in the science department what they're working on. So if we see something that might benefit them, like Keisha said, we can take a picture of it, and I'm sure those authors would be more than happy to talk to them about their research. So it's really an evolved community, and just everyone loves to
Everyone
share.
helps everyone.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you all who will be voting on
Great,
this.
thank you.
Okay. Next up is supplemental funding request 1941, San Francisco trip for the Student Art Club.
vice president and the trip planner for the trip that we'll be going on. We're the Student Art Club, and we're hoping to go on a trip to San Francisco in March. So I just want to talk about what we'll be doing on the trip. We'll be motor pooling down to the city instead of taking a plane. We figured that would drive the cost down quite a bit. We'll be getting a 12-person van, leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning, and taking a 13-hour drive down. We have 3 drivers that will be working in shifts. The next day, which will be March 20th, we are planning on going to the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco and other galleries that are south of our hotel. We'll be walking everywhere. The galleries will be Modernism Inc., San Francisco Art, Koshi Galleries, and yeah, I think they're different, but yeah. And then eating and then going back to our hotel. Then the next day we'll be going to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and then going to other galleries northeast of our hotel, such as the Jenkins Johnson Gallery, Hang Art, Caldwell Snyder Gallery, and Martin Lawrence Gallery. And then the next day we'll be checking out of our hotel early in the morning and making the 13-hour drive back home to Pittsburgh. So just about our expenses. Our hotel expenses have been funded by the Club Senate. We have 3 rooms in Motel 6, cheapest one we could find, and our motor pool rental fees are around $1,000, which we are requesting from S&A, as well as the gas costs $650, and museum entry fees. We originally requested museum entry fees from SAS, but they had to deny us because the Department of Art and Design doesn't have a senator. I don't think that's anything our club has control over, so that's why we're requesting it from SMA now. Each traveler will be spending about $30 per day on food, so that'd be about $1,440, and we have a club account money of $130 for emergencies or like if we need to travel rather than walk, using the anything. This is a list of our attendees. The way we chose them, all our officers are coming, and then people who show up to our meetings regularly and showed a lot of interest in coming. As well as one faculty member. She's not our advisor, but she just had more interest in coming than our advisor did. So this is just, how we usually.
Okay, yes. So, talk about the first day we'll be there. We're going to be going to the Asian Art Museum. And what's great about this setup is the Asian Art Museum has a lot of historical art there. They also do contemporary art by Asian artists. But they have over 2,000 works of historical art from cultures all over Asia, from India to Southeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan. And so that's one reason I'm very excited about this, because we don't, not to knock our history classes, but we don't go over our history, we don't go over the Asian history stuff very much. I think our history classes are great, but this is a great opportunity to then kind of fill in some of those gaps and see something new that we haven't seen before. And then on top of that, there's also contemporary art in this museum, and then we can go to contemporary art. And then at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, that's where you get your experiences with art within the last couple generations up to contemporary. They have a couple exhibitions going on right now. One of them is, what is the name? Selmer? Oh yeah, that's her name. And then an American photographer, Stettner, and a sculptor named Louise Bourgeois, who we talked about in our recent art class. We never got to see her stuff, but she's a sculpture artist, makes these giant spiders. And so it'll be very exciting to see her shows going on there right now. And we'll see it in March. It'll still be there. And then some other parts of their permanent collection, like they have Georgia O'Keeffe, they have Frida Kahlo. Those are some big names that you might recognize that are part of their permanent collection. Yes, and then just to get the size of the MoMA, it's over 7 stories, right? So it's a huge museum. They have a lot of stuff. and it's a great opportunity to see contemporary art. So the next one. So that brings me to, you know, what's valuable about this trip. So for artists, it's, you know, I want to stress the importance of seeing art in person. You know, just talk about Louise Bourgeois. We talked about her in our recent art class. We saw photographs of her work, but we never, you know, there's only so much you can get from a photograph, especially if it's a sculpture. Like, that's not the appropriate way to present it or to experience that piece. So you have to see it in person. And it's less obvious with 2D work, but even take, for example, Jackson Pollock. His stuff isn't so exciting, in my opinion, it's not so exciting as a photograph, but when you see it in person, you see the textures of on the paper and the kind of luminosity there is in some areas. They're much more interesting, they're much more useful when you see them in person, and you get that understanding of what was going on there from a formal perspective. So seeing art in person is absolutely essential to understanding it on one level, and so and enriching your own practices and your understanding. So like how a writer has to read voraciously to become a better writer, an artist has to see art and a lot of art to then become a better artist and to expand their ideas. You know, and maybe this is just a philosophical point, but you know, artists do not have, nobody has ideas innate to themselves. You have to go out and gather experiences. So this is gathering those experiences to create better art. And so why San Francisco? Well, a lot of us have been to Seattle, we've been to Portland, we've been to stuff up here in our little sphere in the Northwest, but we're trying to reach outside of this area, go to San Francisco, another major art center, to experience some new art that we haven't seen before. And then how does that come back to Central? Well, you know, you send out some artists, individuals, they go, they become more enriched in their artistic understanding, their horizons, their practices, they understand a little bit more about what goes on with art, what's possible. They return, they make better stuff, they improve the profile of the department, better work comes out of it. And so the department looks better, the school looks better, and then even after that, as we graduate, a lot of us we will graduate in the very near future, but not all of us. You know, then you have artists who are alumni, is that the correct word? Alumni from Central who are creating great art and are in touch with the contemporary art world. We saw some more contemporary art. And I want to make the last point that formally in the past couple of years there's been an international travel trip during this time that's not going on this year. So we're kind of filling in that gap, offering an opportunity for students to travel to see art in the way that we feel we can. It's not as ambitious as international, but you know, we're offering something here. We're very excited about that.
Any questions?
Open up for questions. Any questions? Demetria?
So you talked a little bit about why San Francisco, but was that like a club's idea, or was it more like the board, or a suggestion from your faculty member to go to San Francisco?
It was a club idea. I believe we talked about possible city locations, and we settled on San Francisco in the meeting. As maybe 10 of us at that time in the meeting. Yeah. Last quarter. Personally, last quarter. We've been planning this for a while now. We had to look way far ahead.
Demetria?
And so the members that are coming, so they regularly attend, did they have to fill out anything else in order to go, or was it just more any member that wanted to go could go?
Well, I wouldn't say any. We did kind of vet them for like how serious they were about, and all of them are art majors except 2 of them are graphic design, I think, are in Francisco. So yeah, people who regularly attend and just showed a lot of passion about it.
If you want to bring committed, interested artists, then that's exactly what we bring.
Thank you.
Was there like any ideas or maybe the possibility of doing some fundraising?
Yes, so we've been doing fundraising.
I think like selling art, right?
Yeah, so we sold little pieces of random sporadic art sales. And then one thing we've done is sell beanies and shirts, and we've done that consistently, but that's a huge investment. So, and our margin for profit is not very big on that one.
Any further questions? Dane?
This just came to me, but you know what you guys could do is like, you guys are drawers. You guys could like draw people, you know, and they like sit across and can't see what you're drawing, and then you draw like stuff from I was like $10
Oh, awesome. We'll all do one. We'll get it.
Any further?
I think mine, just to clarify, you all were doing, I know it says Van Rentals here, but through motor pool here on campus, is that okay?
Any further questions? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you all. We'll be voting on this next week. Okay, next up, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but the song was stock, honoring Cesar Chavez. And Jessica, you have 10 minutes or so.
Hello everybody, my name is Jessica Vendes, my pronouns are she, her, hers. A lot of you may know me as a Metro co-chair, but I am also the co-leader of the Chavez King Leadership Institute. It's a program that is under the Center for Leadership and Community Engagement, which is under student involvement. I'm here to talk to you about Isang Bagsak honoring Cesar Chavez. It's an annual program that started 3 years ago, and it's basically a Cesar Chavez Remembrance Week. So what is Isang Bagsak? Isang Bagsak is Tagalog for if one falls, we all fall. So this was a thing that Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Larry Leong all followed. And it's still used today in Mecha and in Basa. It is previously known as Semana del Campesino, which is Week of Farm Workers in Spanish. This is just to highlight the social injustices that farm workers have gone through and still go through today. It's a week-long event and it just celebrates diversity as well. I have a video, of the first ever event that happened. So yeah, I'll just play this for you.
The birthday of Cesar Chavez, basically in honoring of him and those that fought for farm workers' rights. Him, along with Larry Leong from the Filipino community, Dolores Huerta as well, they all partnered up and collaborated to make life better for the farm workers, and without them, we wouldn't have the benefits or the living conditions improved for our workers here today. And here we're actually doing a farm worker simulation to inform the students and kind of educate them about what it is actually like to be a farm worker, the living conditions, what they actually went through, as well as giving them a small sample of what's actually getting the pack where you like pick apples or pears and so forth in. Waking up like 2 or 3 in the morning every day, working like 8 to 10 hour shifts. I mean, it's hard, it's difficult, but it's the way of life, and a lot of people do this for a living. I hope for us to portray that to the students here on campus. So that food that you're eating and consuming and buying in the markets, there's people out there working hard every day for a living, and it's just important to acknowledge that.
So just going back to Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Larry Leong. Cesar Chavez is a wonderful leader. I'm pretty sure most of us know who he is and what he did. But it's also important to mention Dolores Huerta because she is one of the most few people that go unrecognized, especially as a woman. She did so much for the United Farm Workers movement. She actually started the Union Bank that a lot of farm workers went to because they were obviously low income. And then Larry Leong too, he connected the Filipino farm workers with Cesar Chavez's movement, and they both created this wonderful organization. So I'm actually requesting funding to bring Eduardo Chavez. Eduardo Chavez is Cesar Chavez's grandson, and he reached out to the CWU Mecha chapter here and asked if he could present his documentary, Healing Caesar. But Mecha is so busy throughout the whole year, so I decided to take this on as a Chavez King Leadership Institute event. This is my second year planning this Isan Bagsak week-long event. As you can tell from the video, that was the first year I actually participated in and helped volunteer with it. But what we're really hoping for Eduardo Chavez to do is first be a part of a panel. So this panel is just a way for Central students to come and ask questions about what it's like to be a farm worker, what it's like to be Cesar Chavez's grandson. And then a lot of other people are also going to be on this panel, such as first-generation students, connecting with UFW members from Sunnyside, and they're actually going to come down and actually be a part of this panel as well as camp students. So camp is a program here on campus that deals with migrant and farm worker students who come from that background, and it's just important to give them that recognition and for others to kind of educate themselves on this very touchy topic. But as well as a private luncheon, so the ESC reps are going to be the ones who are gonna kind of be a part of this luncheon, and as well as the Chavez King Leadership Institute. I am requesting funding from ESC for this private luncheon, but again, it's another way for these underrepresented, marginalized groups to connect with something that is very related closely to them. And then again, his documentary is going to be shown later on throughout the day around 5. So it does have an academic component to it. I connected with the sociology department, the political science department, law and justice, and then the Latino and Latin American studies department. And they will be offering either extra credit or making this a requirement. So they could actually go and learn stuff that has to do with their class or their curriculum. I actually connected with Eduardo Chavez himself, and he is having like a curriculum that he has made to start discussion, because you know how some people just like to watch and don't actually intake anything. He actually creates discussions of the themes within the documentary. So there, right below are some topics of the documentary, such as race and ethnicity is a huge one, obviously because these people are underrepresented. Identity, he deals with a lot of his own self-identity because he didn't really connect with his grandfather as much as he should have, and he's learning so much. In the movie, he was around 23 years old, and he learns a lot just in that matter of time that he was in the field himself and actually experienced the circumstances that they work under. And then intersectionality is also a huge one. He talks about why it is important for the Filipinos and the Latinx people and community to stay together even during this time and during our political climate here. So who is going to be a part of the whole week-long event? Camp is going to be a huge contributor as well. The Diversity and Equity Center, Metro is going to be volunteering their time to set up and take down. And then FASA is also going to be performing. There is a Filipino American Student Association here on campus. The CLCE, they're also contributing $200 to bring him here and present his documentary. The history department, sociology department, and those two I have mentioned as well. But here are some learning outcomes and objectives. So understanding the value of social justice. So this is a very big one because obviously this is very touchy. So one of the segments of the week-long event is going to be passing out food that we eat on a daily basis, such as apples and cheese and grapes and strawberries. And it's just so students can know that these foods come from hard labor and from even exploitation as well. And so it's just to get a kind of understanding of what is currently even happening today. The importance of leadership and the organization of people. So those are two other things as well. MECHA and FASA are part of the ESC group, and this is a good understanding of organizing people and how we could be leaders as marginalized groups. So again, accurate historic events of the United Farm Workers Movement. Part of the other segment of the week-long event is an exhibit that is put on by students. So students are going to be presenting like why Cesar Chavez is important to them, and as well as an accurate timeline of the whole movement. The work and effects that farm workers do. So just like in that video, people were practicing like picking up apples. This year is going to be kind of different, so we're going to go into the hazards of ladders and how heavy they are, how many people have fallen off a ladder, the effects of pesticides and heat and dehydration that farm workers go through as well, and as well as undocumented farm workers and what they go through and the rights that they have as workers still, even if they are undocumented. And then again, just highlighting that this stuff is still happening currently today. But the most important one is it promotes a Hispanic serving institution. So this is very important because since the majority of farm workers today are Latinx or Latinx identifying people, and especially if you look in camp, most of their students are Latinx. This is a good way to not only represent camp, but represent the Hispanic population here on campus. But if you have any questions or concerns, open it up.
Any question? Eric?
This is a question from Eeny, meeny, mo. Being that there is an academic component to this and that there will be students.
Well, I think that is a good question. But this, yeah, good question, Eric. So, I mean, I think really how to answer that, sorry, it's late, I'm like, okay, form your words, is this event isn't necessarily required to be put on. There is some, I mean, how many years have you guys done this?
This is going to be the third year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of, sponsored or, kind of handled by the CLCE office too, which is obviously not an academic area. So even if there is a class that's requiring them to go to an event, that's really on the class themselves. It's not really benefiting that classroom per se. It's just an opportunity for that.
Thank you, that's what I thought, I just like to clarify.
Are you doing this as like the event programmer for CLC?
Yeah, so the reason why we are asking for funding as well is because, as you can tell from the first year, it was just simulation. But now that Eduardo Chavez offered to bring his documentary here, we do need more funding aside from that, because funding is going to other programs and other parts of the week as well.
Well, I think you just answered what my question was, because I know there's a number of those other organizations and
Yeah.
departments. And so this request is specifically for bringing him and his
Yes.
documentary, but they're providing support for the other parts of it.
Yeah, the other parts, and they're also going to be like attending as well. The documentary is open to everybody as well.
So he is coming?
No, we haven't booked him yet. We haven't booked him at all. We're just requesting funds.
But if he is booked, he's gonna be here, or is it just for the movie itself?
Yeah, so he's gonna be here for a day. Actually, funny story. He went to Eastern Washington University last year, and he only went for 200. But now that he has toured all over the country, his prices went up. And the week that we actually went to go talk to him to see what dates would work for him, that same week he booked 4 days of this certain week, and so we only have 1 day that we could be with him, which is at April 2nd.
Sorry, so about like the CLC budget, so they just only had enough for $100.
Actually, the COCE is giving 100, and then the Travis King Leadership Institute is giving another 100. But yeah, and then we're also booking like the rooms. We're booking the lunch room, and then we're buying stuff for the other whole week, like the food and stuff.
Do you know how many people attended last year?
So the first year that it was on that video, around 90 went, and last year I planned that one. It was similar to that. There was like no special guests or anything like that. Around 120 went last year, yeah, according to our evaluations.
Dang.
So you said he's kind of got a busy schedule, right? And so does he have that date? Was it April 1st you said?
April 2nd.
April 2nd. Does he have that date pinned for you guys? He's not going to choose someone else over?
Yeah, so he had emailed me last week, and he was kind of like, is this happening or not? So we're still, yeah, so we're communicating still. I had just emailed him today, and I was just telling him that we're in the process of doing this.
Okay. Maybe we could have voted tonight if it would have helped you. I don't know. If someone else is going to like take it from underneath you, that'd be, I don't want us to be our fault.
Well, I still have to go to ESC, so yeah. So I'm still waiting on that too. So it really doesn't.
Any further questions? Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, no problem.
Next week. Alrighty, so that concludes new business, and now we'll be moving to other business and communication received. I didn't receive communications, so.
I've received no communications other than from you about the S&A fair or contact info. Do you have any
No,
communications?
I would just like to communicate that there is $24,940 left in the budget for the rest of the year.
Yes,
That brings up my question. For next meeting, barring some massive explosion of requests, can we have a discussion about how we move forward?
With the budget?
Yeah.
We could discuss it all we want. I think, we really need to be conscious of, not necessarily having limitations, but that we do want to, look at what minimum wage is going to be with that presentation, and I will compile all of that for you. But at this time, I really would advise you to keep within budget. A couple of pieces, just so you guys can be prepared, is that we are in a review process for funding that you guys have already approved to see if anything has been returned. There's a couple of trips, but it really has been very small. We're talking about a few $100s, and so we're kind of hoping as some of these events go on, and there is going to be a good portion of them that go on during spring break, that we can report to you after, or hopefully by our first meeting after spring break, to see if there's any funding that's been basically released back to S&A. So that way we can start the spring quarter to see where we kind of are. One of those pieces, which is a big chunk, is the mariachi group. They have they plan on coming into the office on Friday to have a conversation about where they are with their funding. But that is one event that I know is kind of still up in the air. I think the last I've heard is that they're trying to figure out an actual spot that could accommodate what they need to do during that. So.
I was going to say procedurally, same thing that she just said, is we would want to wait until spring. Also, since we don't have necessarily any things that would put us over, there's not really a rush on that.
Mm-hmm. And just so everybody knows too, I know it feels like we've allocated all this money out pretty early, but I really think that's just due to a lot of requests coming so far in advance. So a lot of these events and these trips are actually happening in March and April. So just to kind of put that in your guys' brains, it's not necessarily that we spent the money on something that we wouldn't normally. It's more we're trying to get them in earlier than a week or a couple of days before their trips or the events happen. So pre-planning is appreciated.
Dane, did you still have something?
Well, I don't know if this is relevant anymore, but like since we're so low on we're getting so down on our budget, I just don't want us to like have to cut people at like the very end of the report, or the very end of the quarter next quarter. Like I think maybe if we want to start cutting, we got to do it now. Like take a few off, a few $100 here, a few $100 there, so they're totally nixing the last few people. If that makes sense. I should have said that earlier, maybe a couple weeks ago, but just to be as fair as we can. I don't know. Yeah, I get that we can like increase the budget, but
Yep, it's going to be an interesting spring quarter. Historically, we're probably, last year I think we had about probably 30 or 40 requests in spring. So we are up with numbers of requests, and I think we're going to have that trend. But I would say, obviously be conscious with all your votes and reviewing all the budgets, but it is something where I think we just need to keep talking about it each week as these requests come through, and not necessarily increase the budget unless we get to a spot where we don't have any funding. So for example, if we fast forward and after potential money has been returned back to S&A, or whatever we do once we reconcile these, we don't necessarily want to increase if we don't have funding requests that match that. So it'll be kind of more of like a case by case when we get down to the nitty gritty.
Great.
So, yeah, and that's why I was just curious, because first year, and as I recall, when we began our first meetings and established this number we have, which I don't recall what it is now. 250?
Yes, 250.
Whew, all right. And what was spent at the end of last year? Was that where? And my, as I recall, there was a much bigger pie that we were taking a piece of that and that we could increase it. So, and I feel the urgency, but I also don't want to, also start cutting or penalizing those that are coming now, because those that came before got, their full requests. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just not really, things come up too, so.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, even last year, we had requests of $418,000. We only approved 293, so I mean, we were.
Well, you actually only approved 307.
That's how much.
Oh, but that's,
Those are the
sorry.
actuals.
Yeah. But we, $110,000 we reduced the requests, and even some declines, so.
I don't think we're close to that at all. I think we've either said full yes or take a little bit off, maybe.
Well, and with that, I mean, to point out one, we had a fairly large request last year, which is part of why. We actually started off at a smaller amount for our supplemental. We did not start off with 300,000. We made an increase partway through the year, twice, because again, we allocated $93,000 to one request. So that was part of why last year. So again, the hard part is comparing is going to be a little bit challenging. But again, we did start off with a smaller pot last year, and that's why we started with 250 this year. So it's higher than where we started, but not quite where we ended the year. But also, there was extenuating circumstances behind that large request.
How much was the main option? Was it 25 or something?
24 and 999.
There's a couple.
Well,
Yeah.
we've even reduced large requests this time. We reduced the American Marketing Association. And then we also reduced the NAFME request from 15 to 5. So I mean, I think we've been cognizant of the total, and I know that a lot of people are requesting earlier because they've come and asked me personally, should I request now? Yes. Don't wait.
So maybe that's a thing that we have to consider. Maybe if they came in early, that's a benefit to them. If they're waiting kind of last minute, like some of these groups are doing, I mean, it's no fault to them, but it's I don't know, you apply to scholarships in schools, assuming you have better chances. I don't know. So, I don't know.
I was going to say, I think the best thing we can do is, again, I think it's good we're having a conversation, be mindful of it. Again, I think exactly what Lacey said earlier, we have to be, they're all going to be a case by case. Because some of them are going to be, they didn't have the ability to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Or what we saw, I know, in previous years, some of what we'll see in spring quarter is not that individuals didn't plan ahead. It's that the funding they thought they had lined up falls through. And so they've been planning it for months and will come in. So again, we're going to see potentially some all over the place. I think we just have to look at it case by case. But again, be very mindful of what we are allocating, because that $25,000 will not go very far when we're having $25,000 requests coming in. So.
All I was going to say is that when we're looking at the requests that you guys have already approved, a lot of these are happening, like I said, in spring quarter. So when you're thinking about how much can a student body request for the next couple of months, it's actually probably not going to be as big as what you guys have seen. It's going to start to dwindle down. Last year was a little abnormal because we had a pickup in the spring, but that had to do with the Club Senate funding. there was no more Club Senate funding for the rest of the year, and so the clubs were persuaded to come to this avenue to request more than they would have in the past. So I don't know, and Club Senate, I mean, they are tracking pretty well. They're not in the same spot that they were last year, and the same thing with SAS. I mean, they're kind of in the same boat where things are starting to get a little low, but I don't think that's anything to be concerned about, at least at this time. So we'll just play it by ear.
I do have a question. Is there a certain point where we stop accepting requests, like during spring quarter? Or do we just continue to accept them?
I will, as long as they are allowable, I will approve them and make sure the committee has viewed them. So I will not deny a request, even if, let's say there's only $3,000 left in the budget. If there's a request that's for $5,000 or something like that, I will, and it's allowable, I will absolutely process that and get it in front of you guys, because that is the decision that you guys have.
Even if there's zero money, okay, just, thank you.
So my understanding then is that at each meeting, we can then say, okay, let's add $2,300 to the budget to take care of this one. And then the next week, we can look at everything and say, okay, let's add this. Is that, we're gonna, I mean, it pieced together, or are we gonna add larger amounts? I mean, I don't know.
I would advise, if we were to increase it, to try to increase it maybe only one time, but it is kind of one of those situations, like last year, we actually increased it twice. So it is possible. You can talk about the procedural part about that.
I mean, procedurally, yes, we could do that. But recommendation-wise, that wouldn't be the best way of doing it, because that's not the most fiscally responsible way to do it. So we'd want to do, okay, we know we're having more requests and we have no money. We have a handful, let's go ahead and just increase it by whatever amount we deem, and based on Lacey's recommendation, and then operate off of that for the remainder of the budget. But procedurally, again, we do have the ability, as you all as the committee, assuming there is money available in the other one.
Right, and is there a certain amount or a certain percentage we want, that we want to roll over? I mean, is that?
Oh, so I would say that the intent is to spend all the money in this budget. So let's say we have $250,000. I mean, there's always a little bit of flex, but the intent is to spend all of the $250. Yeah.
But I'm thinking of that the bank where we go to add, to increase it, that whatever is in that bank account, you know, what that would be, but that's, I guess we could address that later.
For Lacey. If you know, if you don't, that's okay. How are we in the grand scheme of decluttering at this moment with additional monies? If we were to increase the budget this year, how would that affect the second or the third and fourth year of decluttering?
So, that's an interesting question. So there's the base funding, which we've already allocated out. So at this point, this wouldn't necessarily impact any base funded areas. What it would impact is potentially reducing the supplemental budget for the future years. So again, keep in mind, base funding is allocated. We agreed to do this for the remaining cycle. So the only impact that we would potentially see would be a reduced budget. And also keep in mind that it is up to your guys' vote for minimum wage increase, but it also could impact that depending on how the numbers and the enrollment go. We aren't necessarily in a position where we need to talk about anything in a negative sense, but we just want to be conscious that there are other expenses and to be able to bring those forward to you. So you guys can make that decision, and that's based off of full-time staff and also the student wage or minimum wage increase jumping from $12, what it is currently right now, to $13.50 by next January.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading something, it was a bylaw in the Constitution that said that something, I don't know what it was exactly, could not go below $1 million.
Yes.
So, what does that necessarily mean, and how much can we actually increase the budget by?
Yeah.
Theoretically.
So the numbers that I presented to you guys, gosh, now it seems like forever ago in October, was all the available fund balance. So when I say there's an available amount of cash, it is actually not accounting for the required amount of money that we need to keep on hand. So that $1 million is in, the bank account for savings, based off of the bylaws. So anything that we have available is actually not impacting our bond payments or our minimum debt reserve. It would just be impacting available funding for the future years for supplemental.
So we can dip into that.
You can dip into the available funding. I would absolutely say we can't dip into what we term committed money. And that committed money is what you're talking about, the $1 million, and then we also have committed money outside of just the S&A fee, which has to do with the sub fee and the rec fee. That helps pay for the building.
Any further, Dan?
Okay, just for clarification, so we got all this money, this is a big chunk of money, and then, so we're in charge of a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You're in charge of a big chunk.
We're in charge of a big chunk,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. And then we have all this over here for base funding that goes to the CERC and clubs and whatever. And then we have this stuff that's just sitting here that no one's using yet, so we can go over here and take this and put it over here with us.
I feel like I need a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that we can do within what we call the S&A funds, which is all the student fees. There's a lot of student fees, but these specifically are the sub fee, the rec fee, and the S&A fee. Ultimately, they are what we would say are the same fee, which is a service and activities fee. They're bonded fees. They pay for your building and the other program and services that you're aware of with the base funding. So there is funding in S&A that right now is not allocated to base funding. And so it's this big, pot of money that you do have access for that does fund the supplemental budget. And if you vote yes, will fund the minimum wage increases for those base funded areas. But I think you might, you know this a little bit better than me, but we do want to be conscious of the base funded areas because since they were awarded, we are kind of tasked to make sure that they are financially sound. So when we're thinking about minimum wage, it is impactful. But just to give you guys an idea, for the student wage, I'm already getting departments that are saying they think they can handle it themselves right now. Next year might be a different situation. So they are being budget conscious of those areas, especially areas that are split funded that are not fully S&A. So they are finding areas in their budget that they can basically offset that cost for this year. So I don't know how impactful it is. That's why it's going to be important for our March 6th meeting to really see, and I think that could really give us an idea of what we could potentially do for spring quarter.
And to go a little bit more. So one, our number one funding priority when we're talking supplemental and those is to keep funding those base funded areas to help operate and keep them moving if we can. Before we fund other things, including all the supplemental. When we talk about that pot of money that we have, again, you all have, again, advisory pieces. Everything we send goes through recommendation, right? It's ultimately the board of trustees who decides what we do.
Right.
The part to keep in mind is what we've done is we made a shift with this quadrennium to make sure that you all are able to have access to the most funds available and that we're funding the base funding areas to the most that we can. So we have that money, and the plan is really set aside, ideally, again, we're going to pretend that enrollment remains flat over this because that's kind of what we were looking at, because we don't want to assume, is we have set up for that pot of money that if there is no increase in the enrollment, that we're able to still have supplemental funds for this quadrennium and the next quadrennium. Again, it's all going to depend, again, we talk about minimum wage increases and those other aspects. So when we're pulling from that pot of money that's in there, that impacts our ability to do those things moving forward. So while it's sitting there, the committee has had a conversation about kind of potential plans in the future with that, so that way we're using it. But again, knowing there may be things that come up, large expenses, things we can't foresee, which is where we would want to pull from those.
So just to clarify that, what the big change was is that, so this cycle, we've allocated $7.2 million out to base funded areas. Well, we're only projecting to collect $7.2 million. The previous cycle had a supplemental budget within the base funded areas, so all the fee revenue coming in was funding that supplemental. The change is we had money in the bank, and so instead, the decision was to allocate all the incoming revenue out that same year, which is good practice, and then to be able to use this reserve amount to fund supplemental. But the reserve amount won't have any additional money until potentially until the end of the 4-year period. So the last 4-year period, I rolled back about $500,000 out of all these areas. So there is potential of growth, but it's not guaranteed. So that's kind of where we're sitting. That makes sense.
I feel like we need a refresher course on our budget.
Which I think we plan on it. The good news is if it does slow down with funding requests, we will have more time to really talk about business and budgets and policies and procedures, all the really fun stuff that I know you guys signed up for. So, and annual reports and some of this stuff. So there's a lot of work to be done. So don't think it'll be, Greg, don't think it'll be too boring.
Any further discussion points during this other business that we're still in?
Yeah.
Perfect. So next up is public comment, second call. Is there any further public comments for this evening? Perfect. Seeing none, Eric?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Eric moves to adjourn the meeting. Edgar seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes and the meeting has been adjourned at 6:52 p.m.